Good to have you with us at this hour. I'm Daniel Choy here with the latest newscast. Well, for the first time in nearly 4 years, the Korea Meteorological Administration has issued a nationwide advisory against fine dust. And the Seoul metropolitan government is advising citizens to stay indoors if possible. And if you need to get out, do arm yourself with protective eyewear and masks, of course. And if you want me to give you some digits about the severity of the situation outside, concentration of more than 400 micrograms per cubic meter on this Sunday evening. That was the situation outdoors in terms of yellow dust. Moving on to other stories, we have President Park Geun-hye, who has a very busy schedule next month. She is planning to go on a 9-day trip to 4 countries in the Middle East starting March 1st. This will be the president's first overseas trip of the year, actually. Her first destination will be Kuwait, followed by Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Qatar. The presidential office of Cheong Wa Dae said Sunday that President Park will hold summits with her counterparts in each nation in an aim to broaden her diplomatic landscape and boost relations with the Middle East. The talks are expected to touch on the fields of energy, construction, and medicine, as well as security issues on the Korean Peninsula and in the Middle East. Seoul has once again condemned Tokyo for a ceremony celebrating its claim to Korea's Dokdo Island, saying the move is historically regressive. Korea's foreign ministry spokesman said in a statement that the Japanese government's action makes Seoul's question the sincerity of Tokyo's pledge to improve their bilateral relationship this year, which marks the 50th anniversary of diplomatic ties. Japan's Shimane Prefecture promotes its claim to Dokdo every year on February 22nd, and the Japanese government sends a vice minister level official to this year's ceremony. The third straight year it has sent a high-ranking official to that very controversial event. And some discouraging news for those looking to get a job this year in Korea. Korean firms aren't likely to recruit many new employees. A poll by the Bank of Korea released Sunday says the Employment Business Survey Index was 94 at the beginning of the year, the highest in nearly 5 years. The employment BSI measures whether companies feel they have enough employees. A higher digit means they feel the current number is sufficient. Korea's BSI had been falling since late 2009, but it started to pick up pace last year. Over 35% of Korea's largest firms by sales say they will hire a combined 22,000 new employees this year. That's down 2.3% from a year ago. As people in Korea wrap up their extended Lunar New Year's holiday, miles away there are brave volunteers in West Africa still fighting the deadly Ebola virus. While Korea's third and final support team is about to begin a new operation on Monday, back here in Korea, medical staff from the first team speak about their experiences. Our Kwon So-wa has this report.
It was a time of fear, sadness, exhaustion, and hope for the Korean medical team that was dispatched to Sierra Leone, one of the 3 West African countries most affected by the, in many cases, deadly Ebola virus. Members of the first Korean team, who are returning to their daily lives after a 3-week quarantine that ended a week ago, recently spoke to reporters about their month-long mission. They said it was a very meaningful experience to have done what they, as ordinary Korean citizens, did. But it didn't come without hardship. They began their day with a routine of putting on their personal protective equipment, which was one of their most crucial tasks.
With the mask, the hood, and the face shield, your whole face feels tight, and hearing your own breath from that close doubles the tension.
But the hardest part by far was letting their patients go.
The first patient I saw die was a little child. That was a shock to me.
But as the team leader said, it was all worth it, as the country needs to upgrade its capacity to deal with epidemics like Ebola.
With Korea's high medical standards for dispatching support teams for treatment and research, I believe we will help in contributing to the global public's health.
The third and final team is scheduled to begin a one-month mission near Sierra Leone's capital of Freetown on Monday. The number of Ebola cases has been on the decline in recent months, but it's not over yet. The most recent death toll stands at around 9,400 people. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Moving on to other stories, Indonesia has officially invited North Korean leader Kim Jong-un to an international meeting to be held in Jakarta in April. Pyongyang hasn't confirmed Kim's attendance at the Asian-African Conference in Bandung yet, but South Korean government sources say his attendance is likely. If Kim does attend, it will be the first visit by him to a foreign country since taking power in the year 2011. Kim's grandfather, the North Korean regime's founder, Kim Il-sung, attended that event back in 1965 with Kim's father, Kim Jong-il. If the young leader does go to the event this year, he could meet up with his Chinese counterpart, Xi Jinping. North Korea has conducted a military drill near the East Sea with some of its newest weaponry. The North's official Korean Central News Agency reported Saturday the artillery and landing exercise was carried out by artillery forces of the 4th Corps and Island Defense Units. SA-2 surface-to-air missiles were mobilized for the exercise, along with 122mm self-propelled artillery, but most noteworthy was the use of Chinese-made silkworm anti-ship missiles. Japanese lawmakers are at odds over the role of the country's self-defense forces overseas. The ruling Liberal Democratic Party and its coalition partner, the new Komeito Party, do not see eye to eye on that subject. Komeito members question the Abe administration's proposal to remove the geographic limits on the troops' activities and pass a permanent law allowing troops to be dispatched overseas. In the past, temporary laws were enacted on a case-by-case basis. Some Komeito members say it is too soon to consider a permanent law, as there has been no discussions on overseas missions since the decision in July to reinterpret the pacifist constitution and allow Tokyo to come to the aid of an ally under attack. Lawmakers are also debating whether to allow a troop dispatch if the foreign military doesn't have a backing of the UN. Too many times the European brokered peace treaty has been trampled upon and ignored conveniently in crisis-hit Ukraine. The U.S. and its European allies are mulling new sanctions against Russia naturally. Our Shin Se-min reports.
The United States and its European allies are considering a new round of sanctions against Russia for its involvement in the conflict in eastern Ukraine. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry told reporters in London on Saturday, following repeated ceasefire violations by pro-Russian separatists, breaching a European brokered truce signed in Minsk by German Chancellor Angela Merkel and French President François Hollande. The deal called for both sides to withdraw heavy weaponry, which still hasn't happened yet.
If this failure continues, make no mistake, there will be further consequences, including consequences that would place added strains on Russia's already troubled economy.
Kerry also said the U.S. had not yet ruled out the option of arming Ukrainian troops with lethal weapons. In addition, he said satellite imagery confirms that Russia has been supporting the pro-Russian separatists. Russia has long denied its forces are fighting in Ukraine. In the midst of all this, a prisoner exchange has been made. It's the first and a rare sign of progress towards implementation of the peace deal reached in February 12th. The Ukrainian president said nearly 140 Ukrainian soldiers were traded for 52 separatist activists late Saturday, and officials from Kiev said more soldiers would be released soon. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Shifting gears to some culture news. Every field has a pioneer or a legendary figure. For Korean folk music, that person is the late Cheong Wa Dae. She steadfastly guarded, updated and promoted Korean folk music during Japan's colonial rule of Korea and even made inroads into Europe and America. Our Kim Min-ji has this story.
What you're listening to is the Haegum Sanjo, a genre of folk music involving the traditional Korean string instrument Haegum. A master of the genre was Cheong Wa Dae, who was referred to in Korea as the father of Korean folk music. It may not be a familiar name, but Ji, who is honored in his country as an intangible cultural asset, is considered a legendary figure who made great contributions to Korean music. Born in 1909, Ji spent most of his life preserving and developing folk music.
Cheong created jobs for musicians who were mistreated at the time and helped foster an environment for them to be respected. And if it hadn't been for his efforts to transcribe the music, Korean folk would never have existed.
Ji also took his passion to the international level. Through performances in Europe and America, including at Carnegie Hall in 1964, he was able to demonstrate the excellence of traditional Korean music.
Cheong had a dream in disseminating our traditional folk music to the people in America and across the world. When he first went to France and he did a traditional performance, the people there, the coordinators, they were just overwhelmed with the music, and they actually complimented them, saying that your music exceeds our Western music and it is even greater than ours.
He also modified the instruments to create a larger range of tones, just like the ones that are still used today. His keepsakes, from his bicycle and passport to his manuscripts, are still preserved, and his works are still performed and loved to this day by Koreans and non-Koreans alike.
I'm enjoying the performance very much. It's beautiful music. It is very different from Western music, but it's interesting to hear.
Today, the members of his family, some of the musicians themselves, are living proof of Ji's achievements, and they have since taken up the mantle of promoting the uniqueness of traditional Korean folk music. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
And now the weather. Here in Korea, for the first time in 3 years and 9 months, yellow dust warnings have been issued nationwide, so refrain from doing outdoor activities in order to minimize damage from the yellow dust. If you must go outside, do wear protective glasses and yellow dust masks. Seoul lights will start Monday morning at a chilly -6 degrees Celsius. The mercury will float above zero later in the day, but strong winds mean you will need to dress warm. And now let's check out the weather conditions outside of Korea, around the world. That does it for us. Thank you very much for watching. Do have a great start to your new week.